Spencer, happy Easter week.
Happy Easter week.
We are marching toward Easter Sunday, where our congregation will be gathering together to worship the risen Christ. But today is Thursday, which means that it is Maundy Thursday.
Maundy.
Maundy, not Monday, Thursday, Maundy Thursday. So tell me about Maundy Thursday. Am I pronouncing that word right? And it's not a word that is often used in the English language. I can't think of any time in normal conversation I've said the word Maundy.
Yeah.
So tell me what that word means.
Okay, I'm going to tell you what the word means, but I'm not going to tell you yet. I'm going to give you the timeline of what happened, and then when we get to the part of the story on Thursday where the word comes from, I'll let you know what it is.
So what happened on Maundy?
Okay, so here's what happens on Maundy Thursday. You have Jesus, who has entered into Jerusalem after 2.5, 3 years of public ministry. On Monday, he enters into Jerusalem on the donkey. You got to picture Jerusalem where he is as like buzzing with tons of people that if you've ever been to like a massive festival or something like that, there's tons of people that have come in for the Passover, this huge holiday. Everybody's there. Everybody's families are getting together. It's busy. There's hustle and bustle. And Jesus is in town, and everybody knows who Jesus is because he's been healing people. He's been chiding the religious leaders. He's done some really provocative things in Jerusalem. Everybody's talking about Jesus, wondering where he is, what's he going to do next. So you just think fever pitch in Jerusalem at this time. So you get to Thursday, and Jesus has really started to turn his attention to his disciples. He's done some things publicly during the earlier parts of Holy Week, but he's really turning to his disciples now, and they're turning towards celebrating the Passover. Now, the Passover is instituted in Israel right before Israel gets delivered from Egypt. So the story of the Exodus and all of the plagues, God promised Israel that he would spare their firstborn children, but he was going to judge the firstborn children of the Egyptians, and they have to kill a lamb, put its blood on top of their doorposts. And then God, in the Old Testament, institutes this big festival. He says, you're going to do this every single year, and you're going to remember my salvation, okay? So thousands of years later, Jesus is celebrating the Passover with his disciples. And so the way Thursday starts is he tells his disciples, hey, I want you to go and make arrangements for us to celebrate the Passover together. So he tells them what to do. He's like, you're going to go into town, you're going to find this man, you're going to tell him that you're going to use his upper room for our Passover celebration. And they make those arrangements, and they get to this room where they celebrate the Passover together. And inside of the Passover meal that Jesus has with his disciples, really amazing things happen. So the first thing is that Jesus celebrates the Passover, but when you're reading it, you realize that he's doing something different than what a normal Jewish person would have done. What he does is he takes the Passover meal, and it would have been about the salvation that the Israelites experienced from Egypt, but he turns it and says it's about the salvation that he's about to institute with his broken body and his shed blood. And he says, I'm basically, the Passover was about me. It was pointing to me, and now I'm changing it, and I'm instituting a brand new thing. He calls it the new covenant. This brand new covenant is being instituted in his blood. And as an aside, this is where Christians get the Lord's Supper. So when Christians take the Lord's Supper, people call it communion. It starts here on Maundy Thursday. So they take the first kind of Lord's Supper, if you will, which is the fulfillment of the Passover. And then Jesus does something else that's really unexpected. He gets up from the table where they are seating and eating this meal. And it says that he takes off his outer garment, he wraps it around his waist, and he washes everybody's feet. Now, that's weird to us in 2025.
A little bit.
A little weird. So it's like, if I were to start washing your feet right now, you'd be like, what are you doing? A little uncomfortable right now. So back in Jesus's day, you're walking around in sandals all the time. There's no like modern day sewage system. There's dirt all over the ground. There's other things on the ground because there's animals out walking around. So you think about what your feet would look like at the end of the day, right? Your feet would be disgusting. Not only just like stinky feet, but covered in everything that you've been around all day long. So at the end of the day, you would need to wash your feet. And to have your feet washed was a task that was reserved for like the lowest of the servants. So there were even servants, in a house that would say, I'm not doing that. That's for the really, really low minor league servants. So when Jesus washes his disciples' feet, he's doing something that is like the most humble task he could do. And so now I'm going to keep my promise. This is where we get the name Maundy Thursday. Okay, so Maundy comes from the Latin word mandatum, or mandate, and it comes from this part in the Gospel of John. So what has happened is John 13. What's happened is that Jesus has just washed his disciples' feet, and he says, okay, I'm going to give you a new commandment. So this would be like a new mandate, okay? And here's what it is, John 13:34. A new commandment I give you, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also are to love one another. So on Maundy Thursday, we remember this commandment that Jesus gave to us, that he really displayed to his disciples in the love and service that he gave to them. What we remember is Jesus doing this on Maundy Thursday. And really that service is shown when he washes their feet, but it really continues to be shown with kind of the next vignette of Thursday. So after this, they sing a hymn together, and then they go to the Garden of Gethsemane. This would have been a place that Jesus would have spent time with his disciples in the past, and Jesus goes to the Garden of Gethsemane, and this is where Thursday starts to transition into Friday. It's where Jesus is with his disciples. We're told that it's nighttime. He's really burdened by what's ahead of him. He prays to his Father multiple times, asking for deliverance from this, but then prays that famous prayer, not my will, but your will be done. And that's really where the curtain closes on Thursday and really opens on Friday. So it's funny because when you think about Easter, you don't think about Thursday. But, as you think about the things that happened, it's packed full of really interesting, unique things that Jesus did in his life and in his ministry, and really significant things that he did. So that's the play-by-play.
Yeah, those are all really significant events and also famous events. But we oftentimes as Christians don't place those events in their proper place, which is in Easter week, just the day before Good Friday. So as you've thought about those events that happen on Maundy Thursday and study them and talk to other Christians about them, they're obviously really famous events, and you've already given us some really good insights into it. But what are maybe some unique things about those events that Christians don't oftentimes think about?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So I think that the first thing is what I mentioned earlier, is that I think that when we think about what Jesus does at the Passover meal, we typically think about it as just, oh, this is the Lord's Supper. That's what he's doing. We don't connect it to what happens in the Exodus. And really what Jesus is doing is he's saying all of this stuff in the Old Testament, specifically this really important event in the Old Testament in the Passover, it has always been pointing to me, and I am the fulfillment of it. And so what Jesus is saying when he says these famous words of, this is my body, this is my blood, like this cup and this bread, he is saying what I am about to do with my body being broken and my blood being shed is starting a brand new way for you to relate to this meal. It's no longer about this thing that happened in the past in the Old Testament. We remember that, but really it's pointing to what I am about to accomplish right now in the cross and in the resurrection. I think that's something we don't think about a lot, is connecting those two events and really seeing it. Another thing we see is Jesus in the stories of Thursday it shows that he's actually in complete control of everything that's about to happen. So he tells his disciples, hey, we're going to go here and we're going to have this meal here. And he's talking about his death over and over again. He goes into Gethsemane and he talks about what's about to happen on the cross. Jesus is not being led against his will somewhere. He is totally in control, knows what's about to happen, and that actually makes his death and his resurrection so much more amazing and powerful to us.
So good. I was thinking about that when you were going through the narrative of the events, the fact that Jesus like told his disciples to go to a specific place, and he's like, you're going to talk to a specific person, and they're going to like be ready for us to have the Passover at their house. It's just next level sovereignty and providence that he's displaying there.
I just think about what kind of love do you have to know what's about to happen, to know that in just hours you are going to be experiencing the worst type of pain, and to say, I'm going to keep walking down this road. Like, I'm going to keep walking down this road of love. It's a stunning demonstration of love that really is arresting when you stop and think about the fact that Jesus knew all of this and he kept walking down that path.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes me think, especially the washing of the feet narrative of what Jesus said in Mark 10:45, that he came not to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many. Yeah. And that's just like a striking illustration and demonstration of that.
I know it really gets into, when you think about taking these days that happen during what Christians have called Holy Week, Monday through Sunday, this last week of Jesus. You think about how to take these days and apply them to your life and what they mean. This idea of Maundy, this word that we don't use a lot, the mandate, it really makes you pause on Thursday. And I think, what Jesus wants us to do, he says this in John 13:34, is he says, I want you to love the way that I have loved you. So it's one of the big applications of this day. So you walk through Thursday and you should be thinking, okay, Jesus, at the end of his life, he's got 24 hours left before he's going to be crucified. And the way he's spending his time is washing people's feet and serving them and taking care of them, teaching them. That is the definition of love and of service. I think about this other passage in the book of Philippians. So the Apostle Paul writes this letter to this church in Philippi. And in chapter 2, verses 3 and following, he says that Christians should not look to their own interests, but to the interests of others, to not count themselves as most significant, but to count others as more significant than themselves. And then what's fascinating is when he gives the basis for that, he says, because this is the mind of Christ. And then he goes into what Jesus has done. He's lived this perfect life in our place. He dies this brutal death, and then it talks about the resurrection, Easter. So when Christians look at these examples from Jesus's life and they see the way he serves, what that's meant to do in us and the way it's meant to challenge us is to really turn our attention to the people that are around us. I've been really challenged by that this year as I'm thinking about this day is, Lord, who are the people around me that I need to be loving and serving? It's so easy to make excuses to not serve people, to be like, oh man, I'm really tired, or I've had a really busy day, or things are really hard, or we're having a hard time right now as a family. But you think about Jesus and he's like about to be crucified and he's washing people's feet.
It's amazing.
It's really transformative if we just read these words from Jesus and watch his example and really meditate on it this Thursday.
So our listeners here are going to go out on Thursday and live their lives in the world. What are some practical ways that they can do what you're talking about? What are some practical ways that they can follow the example of Jesus and love and serve other people this Thursday?
Yeah. One command of Paul that I think about, I think he says this in Romans 12. He says a command to Christians, he says, associate with the lowly. So he talks about basically you shouldn't think highly of yourself as a Christian. You shouldn't think, oh, there's these things that I do, but then there's just certain tasks that I'm kind of above that kind of service. I'm kind of above that kind of task. I mean, there's just no place for that in the Christian life. There's no position you can be in at your work or status you can have in the government or some job you can have that would set you apart, that would say you're above serving and really associating with the lowliest of people. So one of the things I would encourage people to think about as they meditate on this day is, who are the lowly people in your life? Who are the people that, are easily ignored, are the people that are easy to miss, the people that maybe society would say are not the most valuable or important. I think about like a mom right now on Thursday, and she's got little kids in her house. No one's giving her a round of applause for changing that 13th diaper today. She's associating with the lowly. I think about people in your community that are in great need, who maybe someone just lost a job in your church. Maybe they're going through a big season of suffering. It's easy for those people to be forgotten about. God says, move towards those people. Jesus is an example of that, even as he washes people's feet. And he says, I want you to love the way that I have loved you. The last thing I would say, just to connect, just thinking about Jesus fulfilling the Passover, is just to remember that the whole Bible is about Jesus. You think about the fact that Jesus is saying on Thursday, this thing that happened thousands of years ago was pointing to me and should be understood now in light of me and what I am doing in my cross and my resurrection. I think that makes reading the Bible just an incredible opportunity to get to know Jesus better, both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. And I would just encourage Christians, as they're reading their Bible, reading their Old Testament, going through their Bible reading plans or whatever, is to remember that all of Scripture is pointing to Christ, and he's fulfilling it. And so those are just a few things.
Yeah, he is our Passover lamb.
That's exactly right.
Such an amazing insight.
It is an amazing thing.
Well, brother, thank you so much. This has been so wonderful, just learning more about Maundy Thursday and hearing and just being reminded of the wonderful example of service that our Lord is to us, just the way that he served his disciples on that day. But then even more significantly, just being reminded of the way that Jesus has served us in the greatest way, by dying on the cross to pay for our sin and raising again on the third day. And that's the wonderful news that we're celebrating this Easter week. And so we encourage you all to go and worship your Lord and follow after this wonderful example of servant-heartedness that we've seen here today.